Hi, everybody. Welcome to this first webinar on the automotive industry. Serve, don't sell. Can a new customer experience save the automotive industry? We are currently facing a very challenging time, and digitalization became the golden word to carry on business as usual. Today, our speakers will share their views on market trends, customer journey, personalization, marketing strategy, and more. Let's get started with our panel. Hi, John.
Hi, David. My name's John Pickles. I'm responsible for digital optimization of marketing at Ford of Europe, where I've been for the last 5 years now. However, I've also got extensive experience across both financial services and in management consulting.
Thank you, John. I haven't been a very good gentleman. Sorry, Louise. Should have been you first.
My name's Louise Coates. I've got 22 years of motor industry and retail experience, and I'm currently retail strategy manager for Ford of Britain. So looking at both the physical and the online showrooms.
Thank you. Vincent?
So my name is Vincent Heilbron. I am the CEO of CV Cars. We are a platform that helps people make the shift from combustion engine driving to electric vehicle driving. The long-term goal is for this to become a platform for future mobility. So basically the whole case world, if you will, connected, autonomous, subscription and electrification. Of course, electrification is what happens now, and we are revenue driven, of course. As such, that's first. But yeah, long term, we aim to latch onto this early adopter segment and help the world shift in all these mobility steps.
Adam?
Hi, I'm Adam Baum, Digital Project Manager at Volkswagen Group UK. Currently working in the Skoda brand. I'm the digital product owner for our digital assistant tool, which is a sales tool designed to revolutionize the showroom experience. I've got multiple years experience within the automotive industry across different segments and across different brands as well, including Audi, Volkswagen Group generally as a group service. And I'm also the digital product owner for our virtual showroom, which I'm grateful for, very grateful for during these testing times.
Thank you, Adam. William?
Hello, everybody. My name is William. I'm the founder of a company called the Academy of Robotics. We're in the business of designing and building self-driving cars. We make it so when you buy something online, we can have one of our cars drive itself to your house and then autonomously deliver a package. Then it does this again and again. So we are the autonomous delivery people, and we make self-driving cars that make it all happen here in the UK.
I would need one, William, very soon. David?
Hi there. Yeah, my name's David Horn. I'm the author of a book called Automotive Secrets. I have around 10 years experience in the automotive industry, but I'm now the lead in automotive at Oracle for customer experience innovations.
Thank you. As we said earlier on, we are experiencing a very exceptional situation which forces us to change our way to work and serve our customer for a few weeks and months and maybe years. So Louise, first question to you. How car dealers are preparing themselves to this current crisis? Is there a pre and after strategy?
Well, these are uncertain times that we've never experienced before, but I suppose what we've been discussing today comes to the forefront. So we are obviously getting online sales more active in the process now that most of our physical showrooms are closed for the time being. Virtual showrooms become more important, but probably the most important tool that we're currently relying on daily is live chat. And certainly across our dealer network and in Ford Motor Company themselves, we're seeing increased volumes to that functionality as customers really want reassurance, more clear communication. But it's not only about customers. We've been talking also about workers. But again, we're all working remotely for the first time, probably historically, when most of the company is working from their kitchens, living rooms, wherever is applicable. So we need flexibility, we need certainty in these difficult times, and digital solutions, as we're experiencing now, does come to the forefront. So I think we'll have learned some best practice after we're responding to the current crisis, where we can put more technology into our daily lives.
John, what's your point of view regarding the data in terms of this crisis?
So I guess having access to and being able to process the vast amount of data that is available makes us much better able to respond to anything. And this crisis is no exception. But really, until you have everything connected up, and if there was one thing to perhaps take out of this session for anybody watching, it would be, it's not just about the data itself, it's about the ability to gain insight and ultimately activate that data to connect with the people that you've learned something about. And in this case, in my world, it's very much digital. But if anything, what I think has changed is not so much the technology as the cultural. It's a cultural change. We're genuinely seeing for the first time, perhaps over the last year or two, a situation where companies are data and insight led, as opposed to being led by the highest paid person in the room, the hippo, if you like. And that for me is the big change. We're seeing that. We're seeing that investment, and on the back of that, there's a whole proliferation of different ad tech and martech that allows us to identify the people so that we can send the right message at the right time. Because in the end, in one sense, it's not rocket science. It's always been about sending the right message to the right person at the right time, and it still is. Times change, needs change. But that capability is still where we're at, and we're much better able to deliver on that than we used to be.
Correct. We've got the technology. It's how we can adapt that technology to our current situation. Adam, is that something that you're really trying to adapt in your own world in terms of digital marketing, campaign strategy, that you're trying to adapt all these based on this crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what this crisis has brought us to is a situation where we need to quickly adapt to what's happening. So we generally had pretty good response time within sort of 24 hours of loads of announcements off the back of the government announcement. We started already targeting our media spend and what that meant, and also the landing pages. So we saw a big shift in moving away from our usual BAU drive towards the showroom, the physical showroom, and more of a drive towards our virtual showrooms, and then also the training that comes alongside that to make sure we're just set up to carry on, but just in a virtual realm instead. Thankfully, we already had a lot of tools set up, so we didn't necessarily have to go about implementing technology, but we always continue to explore the latest technologies to help us do that. So all the digital marketing tools, whether it's PPC, paid media, etc., are ready to just be turned off and turned on. And we've got good agencies that really help to support us through that as well.
And from a CIO perspective, Vincent, how do you face all those challenges? Do you feel yourself, launching a new company, that you really need to adapt yourself, even if you're new and almost born within the digital world?
Yeah, it's both ways, if you will. Having just launched a business and then having challenges upon the challenges, if you will, is of course very difficult. It's very hard, but I see adopting almost as a strength of us, if you will. We are small. We started this business with a certain belief of what's going to happen in the future rather than what's happening today. So in a way, moving fast is what we must do and what we, in a way, are skilled at. I see a lot of movement online, and we are an online-only business. So in that sense, for us, it's actually good news. I guess with people being home a lot, and they spend a lot of time online, and we have a new product that many people are curious about, electric cars. They've heard about it. They're probably on the fence. Now they have time to do research, it seems. We see actually quite more traffic than we expected to our website. And again, we are not purely based on selling. We do have a piece that actually helps people take them by the hand, explain electric cars, explain the life of the electric cars, explain the fun of it even, right? You're faster at the traffic light, you know? It's a fun car, fun thing to drive. I like how some of the other people also refer to culture. It can be a strength and a weakness, right? The culture in a business, but it goes even beyond that into a whole industry. And I'm going to say the word that maybe many people don't want to hear here, which is Tesla. I think Tesla is a different culture. It's not just a different car. It's a way of thinking which is tech almost, and data-driven and intuitive still, rather than maybe process-driven, structure-driven, etc. And what I mean with that, for example, ideas like summoning your car, push a button and the car comes out. Would a existing OEM have thought of that? And if they would it go past all the levels of approval? Whereas if you look at a company like Tesla, they love it, it's fun, and they put it a ludicrous button, all these kind of things that tech companies do as a culture almost, right? That's part of their culture. It's not that other companies cannot think of that, but it is part of their culture, or it's not part of your culture, if you will. And I do wonder how that will go in the future. There's this change of culture needed almost.
Yeah, and culture-wise, I think we heard a lot of people saying that the crisis will change the way we are buying and processing as well in terms of, pretty much sales. And do you guys on the panel, do you agree that crisis that we are currently living will change the automotive industry in a good or bad way? We don't know, it's still early, but do you feel there's something happening because of this crisis that will dramatically change the automotive industry in the near future?
Yes, I think it will. I think just by the way we're currently unable to operate in the physical environment makes, I think, investment and focus on more virtual tools move up. It's already really important, but I think that will escalate with much more priority within all our companies for those who aren't already operating fully online.
I just wanted to follow on from Vincent and Louisa. I completely agree. I think at two levels, probably at a micro level and a macro level, it's going to probably exacerbate a lot of the change that's probably already coming. I think even just when you look probably at things like balance sheets and stuff of whether OEMs and you go down to then retailer levels, in my opinion, I believe it's just going to exacerbate some of the timelines and just really reduce them down, given the current, probably quite likely to have a recession, and then who knows after that, probably trying to stop a depression. So it's testing times. But following on from what Vincent said, absolutely agree with his comments on Tesla. I think the key cultural difference that probably even your more traditional, what seem to be more traditional OEMs are going through at the moment is around MVP. So it's previously something that, we would go to the hilt to make sure everything's perfect, everybody's seeing it, everyone signed off on it, and then release, by which point market's probably already moved. But as we're going through right now, it's about bringing out their MVP product. So if people haven't got a virtual showroom or they don't have live chat service or something like that, I don't think they spend too much time at the moment in going through all the fine details. It's about getting something out there so you can face the customers.
William, we just talked about Tesla a couple of times. Do you think this is an amazing opportunity for AI and the car industry?
I think what's happened is the current crisis has shown the world two major things. The first is the viability of working from home. That's not a terrible idea for most companies. And then in the auto space, automation of anything is a good thing. And I think people are beginning to see this. If you look at the social networks and all the video clips being shown at the moment are maybe robots delivering stuff in China or autonomous cars taking people around. Incidentally, this week I had 3 emails from venture capital funds get in touch saying, I think we need to have a conversation. We're beginning to see people are seeing that automation is not a bad thing, and we might see more money being pumped into it. And if more money is pumped into it, that's where we get the products from. The reason why in the world now we have all these apps to book us faster restaurant or walk dogs is because venture capital throws money that way. And now venture capital is beginning to focus on automation. And I think in the next sort of 18 months, you'll see the results of that, being companies like us having a bigger footprint. So I think this crisis is definitely going to affect the auto industry, but not in ways that we thought. It's more proving a use case. We're not saying there'll be a crisis like this all the time, so let's automate, but more that with automation, things move, things are cheaper. With automation, working from home is a thing, because you could, does that make sense? That's kind of what we're beginning to see, that the money seems to now be focusing to where we are. So it means innovation will come from where we are. The next startups are all going to be trying to jump into auto space. And as you said earlier, it takes a tech startup to dream up something like Summon or Autopilot. And it takes a tech startup to dream up something like, rather than a man with a van, we could send an electric car and have it delivered to your house in less than 30 seconds, less than 30 minutes.
Thank you.
And can I just jump in there, David? So following on from what Williams just said there as well, I do believe that there is like this seismic change that's going on, and I'm actually likening it to the Nokia and iPhone. So, Nokia dominated a certain industry for a long period of time. iPhone came in and no one talks about Nokia anymore. And I think that was happening at a slower pace. And I think to Williams' point now is this is almost like accelerated something massively, where actually there's going to be a seismic change, whether that's automation, whether that's a reduced number of OEMs, retailers, whatever that may be. This will make the pot boil faster.
Yeah, fully agree. And it's
sorry.
Sure, go on.
No, just David, I think you mentioned the possible role of AI or artificial intelligence at the beginning of that, and I think that's not an end in itself, but it is a necessary response to the sheer volume of data that's going to be needed to be able to process. And autonomous vehicles is perhaps the best example that we have of that. Even the current connected vehicle, I think. The numbers and estimates range widely, but maybe 25 gigabytes an hour of data is sent one way or another from a connected vehicle. That can be anything up to 5 terabytes for a fully autonomous vehicle with the amount of data that has to be processed. So people can't deal with that. They can't organize it, let alone make decisions, and certainly not make decisions in time for them to be effective in the context of an autonomous vehicle. They just drive into the nearest wall or oncoming vehicle if you had to wait to process that kind of volume. So I think we're going to see huge disruption, already have within the automotive sector, but it's going to be more on a scale. We've already seen it with Uber, with Alibaba, with Amazon, whatever it might be. There's huge disruption. And no, I don't think the existing OEMs are particularly well placed. Historically, they haven't proven themselves to be particularly nimble and adept at responding to change. So it's going to be a question of learning to do that or dying. So absolutely, we're all going to have to learn something from the existing disruptors in various industries.
So John, I'm going to stay with you. How important is it to know your customer and maybe understand the data we collect? Because we are talking about, all those technologies, and how can we put that into a practice sense?
It is critical, and we have forces pulling in different directions, actually. We're getting access to more and more data, and I won't pretend it's particularly easy to connect it up. Historically, perhaps different companies have been better or worse at collecting their first-party data, the interactions that they have within between their own customers. And even then, there's an additional challenge within automotive because the purchase cycle is so long. You might not hear from a guy maybe from one service to another if you're lucky, or even from one vehicle purchase to another with a cycle of around about 3 years. So actually, we don't really know much about what's going on in the context of our customers or prospects' lives more generally. And you have to know that. Fortunately, a lot of that data is now available from all sorts of sources, from third-party companies like Axiom or Experian through to the big ad networks and data companies, WPP, Oracle, who have access to all sorts of data which might be questionnaire-driven or that's coming out of the ad networks that we can connect up. But connecting all of that together requires the ability to form identity graphs, to understand who somebody is. And whilst we're getting a little bit better at that, it's not that easy. And in the opposite direction, we've got all the concerns that have been quite correctly raised through European Privacy Council's regulatory environments like GDPR or the California Consumer Privacy Act. People are becoming much more aware of the data that they give up and the value of that data and the potential for intrusion. So you have the regulatory environment potentially pulling you one way, and you have both the need and the ability to process that data coming into companies of all sorts in different directions. And somehow we have to manage that competitive tension.
Yeah, and staying on data, Adam, how central is data in shaping your marketing strategies and activities?
The number one point, if you like. We're definitely getting much better at it. As John alluded to, I think generally within the industry, we've seen quite a rise in the amount of data, not only that we're collecting, so we're starting to finally connect loads of different data points. For example, I work for Volkswagen Group. There's lots of brands within the group. We haven't really, we still work in silos to some extent, but there's valuable data there to be shared just across the brands and just on our website. So we're starting to use it ever increasingly. But as always with data, it's the insight that you can gather from that. So I guess we're kind of getting over the step one, which is putting pieces in place to get hold of that data, and now more into step two, which is gaining the insight from it, which will then inform more strategies and generally what you're doing. But again, that's a cultural shift for a lot of management teams as well. I think automotive is generally, probably more traditionally, it's been a lot of firing from the hip. Whereas now, as John alluded to in his opening statement, it's a lot more informed. If you've got the data and a hypothesis to back it, then it's valid. It's valid just as much as anybody else's opinion or experiences, which I think can only be a good thing. There are times, I'm sure like there are now, where people are reacting to things. Maybe they're overlooking certain data points and just saying, we need something out there with live chat. So there's that piece as well. But absolutely, it's central to everything we do. Just as when we look at the customers we're targeting, then we'll have a look at where the media sort of relates to that customer. And if we don't think it's going to cut through, there's no point of spending money in that channel. Whereas historically, it might be, oh no, we're on TV. That's a good thing. It means we're going to get customers. Well, now you've got the data to marry that up, and does it mean that customers are going to enter the showroom either physically or virtually? We're closer to them data points of making sure we make the most of our spend.
Vincent?
Very much the same here. We, being a startup, of course, don't have a huge amount of data collected ourselves. We are, however, completely set up for collecting data. We use different channels for that, of course, in particular social media channels. We do a lot of testing, capturing of that data, retesting, sharpening, and we may be the only ones here. We also buy data that can be very helpful for us. All GDPR compliant, of course. It's with publicly listed companies. So it's not personal, but you can segment really well using some purchase data. In our case, of course, it has a lot to do with electric vehicle buyers. Who are the initiators? What are the variables that are overrepresented, if you will, with these kind of people that actually purchase electric vehicles? Then who are the early adopters, who we find just as important? And then, of course, you get to the masses, etc., which maybe not our segment, if you will. But all of that is data-driven. There is a certain amount of intuition, because you do have to look into the future, right? And data, of course, is to a certain degree looking to the past. And what you're trying to find is the real moment when there is an actual shift, if you will. So if you've identified one or another variable, it isn't enough to just jump on it. It may be too early. It might even be too late. It may be something that has already happened, and that's why you're measuring it, if you will. But the real trick is, when is that exact shift? Once you can apply this over and over again in a successful way, I am convinced you can start seeing it in data as well. But there may be a bit of intuition needed every now and then. I can, for example, give a simple example. Pure intuition based, and you can reason it back. But from looking at it from this side, yoga people and electric vehicles, how big an overlap in common variables do they have? Well, it turns out many, but the data itself would not necessarily show it unless your intuition already told you make that overlap. So then how are we going to capture this customer segment? Yoga people who probably are thinking about electric cars. They're probably city people, but once a month or so, they hike in nature. Is an electric car still suitable for them? Can we approach them in this way? And data will let us know how. Data will confirm, hopefully, our intuition, but it may also disprove it, which then still doesn't mean that it's not true. But yeah, data is very central, with a little touch of intuition, I would say, in our case.
Louise, do you feel we are ready for a seamless customer journey in the automotive industry?
No, not quite yet, but we're getting there. I think it's really important that we use data to help us with that. And one of the most important things is, I think, interacting with the customer at the right point with the right relevant message, because if this is a customer who may historically have not bought your product, you've probably got one chance to engage with them, and it needs to be really relevant, and data and segmentation, which we've talked about before, can help us to do that. And I think we probably know more about our existing customers and less about the customers that we might want to expose our product to. And they're probably the customer we're all more interested in talking to, and all more interested in having a 360 degree, or not forgetting our own customers, but also moving away to conquest customers. So I think it's really important that to be seamless, we need to get to the customer at the right time, to not really push a vehicle manufacturer message, because I think we do that quite a lot, but more point the customer to trusted reviews and things, so they can get a rounded opinion of their research. And then obviously when they're more keen to engage, that we do that relevantly. And if that relevant piece is all about a digital experience, then we need to deliver that from all the way through to the end. If it's a combination, which is more likely to be of the digital and the physical, then we need to make the physical piece as easy as possible for them to do. And if that means taking the product to their place of work for a test drive during their lunchtime, then we should be geared up to do that. So I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think we are making progress in making the customer journey much easier than it's been historically. I think buying a car or leasing a car is probably one of the most time-consuming and admin-heavy purchases currently that a person makes. Probably a house is the only thing that's probably more admin-heavy, and we need to strip that all out and make it as simple as possible for the customer. And I think we're getting there, probably not quick enough as an industry, but I certainly think we're making some waves in that, and I think the current crisis we're in will accelerate all of that. Can I buy a car digitally from start to finish? Yes, I can.
Thank you, Louise. We've got someone within the audience who would like to ask a question. Hi, please introduce yourself and your question.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. Yeah. Hi, my name is Bert. I'm running marketing for a large mobility or solutions provider, and I was just listening to the what you were saying for the customer journey, and I wonder. So, what opportunities does the panel here see being offered by AI in supporting the customer journey, or if any?
Thank you, Bert. Who wants to answer? Maybe William with AI, maybe other member from the panel?
Do you know what? I'll hand it to someone else because I think that's not the question is asking. We use AI, but slightly differently. So actually, I will answer it. So the way we apply AI is slightly different to most because remember, we're trying to make autonomous vehicles which will deliver a package to you. So everything we do is in service to making the user experience absolutely magical. Not the retailers per se, not the logistics companies per se, because at the end of the day, our true customer is the user at home. There is a reason why our cars look like an absolute spaceship. There's a reason why when they go on the road, people crowd and say, "What is that?" So everything we've ever done is in service to that user experience being better. And so how we apply AI are clever little things that AI can be used to make that user experience better. A simple example is we managed to teach an AI to be able to see behind parked cars, to be able to see kids playing with balls behind the street, because in autonomous delivery, these cars are mostly traveling within the sort of residential areas. So there's kids playing. And the car looks like a spaceship. It's going to grab their attention. So for us, everything we do is in service to making the absolute best delivery machine in the world. Because if we do that, we win over the user, then every retailer, every logistics company would want to have our product because it's what the users want. That's how we use AI. Yeah, I don't know that answers the question, but that's for our vertical at least.
Thank you. Anyone who would like to share something on the AI very quickly before we move to the next part?
Yeah, I'd say we use it 2 or 3 different ways and a little bit differently. It's interesting to listen to William and the different approach. I guess more conventionally, in terms of a use of AI, it would be we would use it to customize the user experience, or particularly the image or the tone of voice that it might get based on the information that we have about them. So we'll combine the data that we have, which might be first-party Ford-owned data, or it might be third-party data, to understand what kind of person he's been, what sort of journey they may have been through either our website or third-party websites, and then serve up a different experience. So if somebody's been and configured a high-spec electric vehicle with extended battery range, we'll try and customize that experience next time he comes back online, either in a Ford site, or indeed we can customize that experience out in third-party sites to reflect what we know about the individual. The difference between that and 20 years ago in a direct marketing paper-based world is it was less fragmented then, and you could do it, but it might take you 3 weeks to do it. Now you've got to respond in real time. And AI is pretty much the only way that you can do that, and to constantly optimize that experience so that you're always serving up what is statistically the best responding version of that experience to that particular type of customer.
Thank you. Listen to the customers. That's one key thing. And we've got survey, feedback, comments, ratings, social media listening. One of the questions is, how well is the automotive industry set up to respond to customer needs rather than pushing out their own innovation? So do we really listen to our customer, David?
Yeah, so this is an interesting point. And actually, people I'm talking to at the moment in the automotive industry, they spend millions of pounds on actually surveys to actually understand what their customers think about themselves. Now, I think this is a complete waste of money. And the reason for that is mainly because there are smarter ways in doing it. I think that when you directly ask someone for feedback, the OEMs and other people actually position perfect questions at the perfect time, and humans actually respond not necessarily in a truthful manner. What actually people should be doing is understanding what they're doing in their own little world. So whether that's Facebook, Google, TripAdvisor, we can truly understand what they really think about you. And you should be constantly revising how they feel. And an example of this is that they may think that the purchase of a car was absolutely brilliant 2 days after the car was delivered. But then a month later, and it starts to break down, they'll be putting all of that messaging out onto Facebook, Google, wherever they put it on. And I think that we forget about that part of the customer experience. And what we should be doing is capturing that, feeding it back into our big database, using the AI, as John was mentioning, a few others. And then how do we then use that information to better serve our customers going on? That's truly listening and truly understanding our customers throughout the whole entire customer experience. And I think people, companies, OEMs, retailers should be shifting their focus to constant listening rather than surveys.
Thank you, David. Adam, how do you ensure your marketing strategy will resonate with the audience?
That's $1 million question. I think, but no, absolutely. I think, I mean, this is my opinion here, but I think it's a blend of what you're trying to do. Ultimately, there's somewhere maybe it's a bit more of a safer marketing strategy where you can have your surveys and so on, which David has kind of alluded to, and you'll kind of follow the automotive norm. I think because of the volume-led industry that it is, we've kind of got ourselves in a position where we're so used to building a new product, marketing it, selling it, servicing it, next product, and just moving on like that. It kind of takes the life out of it to some extent. I think with the disruption we've experienced from companies like Tesla, it's brought back some of the energy and some of the feel-good factors from a more of a genuine perspective, where brands are now looking into alternate ways of marketing. I think Louise alluded to it earlier as well, when you're trying to almost not say, oh, here's the official OEM message. You're just trying to get a lot more genuine. I don't think Tesla do any marketing, and that's just because, you know, they drive up a lot of excitement. They have a lot of core fans that follow them. And there's a lot to be learned from that. It's almost, I think it ties back to the volume game. Everyone's maybe feels a bit uneasy about, okay, we're going to hit our volume. Therefore, we know we need to spend X amount to hit this volume. And if we're not spending that amount, are we going to hit it? Whereas if you just go purely off trying to create customer demand off a fantastic product, is a bit of an unknown until the orders start to come through, so everyone can feel a bit uneasy. But I think we're shifting more into maybe more entrepreneurial methods of marketing and coming back to more genuinely the core basis of what we're trying to do in this change. Whereas before it's been previously, I guess, more like a chicken shop. It's just been, you know, make the car, market it, sell it, service it, next product. Whereas now I think we're starting to scale that back and really start to get our creative minds back again around, okay, well, how can we do this a bit differently? And that doesn't just mean a slightly different campaign. It's more the macro of what you're trying to do.
Thank you. Just one more person on this topic before we move to the next chapter.
Just to say, I totally agree with David. I think surveys are a waste of money and companies should stop doing them, because you just survey your customers and you get a very low response rate, and then you start to build what your company should look like or what we should do on the basis of a very small proportion of the population. So I think it's really important to use other forms of listening to what your customers need, and that's a combination of all the data that we have, appropriate listening, you know, and I think we need to do more social listening. You know, everybody knows how many people now have social accounts. We need real-time response to any issues that are arisen. We shouldn't wait for a survey to come back, tell us there's an issue. We should be able to respond to any problem. or any question in real time. And the people who are able to do that will be the winners.
Thank you. John, I've got one question for you, if you can answer that in 1 minute. Importance of internal versus external data to listen to your customer.
They're two different things, I guess. It's a prerequisite that you should have and be able to respond to in a professional manner the data that you own. So when a customer visits you, buys something across the different silos that exist within your industry. And it's perhaps surprising how poor a lot of older manufacturing-based companies are at that. They've grown up, they have a number of different legacy systems, and they're never really connected very well. That's a prerequisite. It should be a basic. But beyond that is where we need to be now. And we were getting much better at getting data from Google, from the social networks, from a different sort of survey, not our own surveys, but there's other companies, the Axioms of this world, that were largely survey-based. That tends to be a bit static data. But once you can connect it all up, then and only then do you have a genuine 360-degree view of, or a single customer view of what that is. But that's a challenge, and it's a bigger challenge within the new regulatory environments where people have to give you permission for that. So building an ecosystem, an environment where the customer trusts you, and I think that word trust is a critical one there, to own and responsibly use that data. And one person's relevant might be another guy's creepy. So it's not an easy thing to do, but a privacy by design environment where the customer trusts you and where you have access to the data that allows you to serve the right thing at the right time to the right person. That's what we're striving for. And there's no silver bullet here, but that's where we need to get to.
Thank you, John. Serve, don't sell. What can the automotive industry learn from tech companies like Apple, Amazon, on how to serve the customer rather than sell to them? So Vincent, how do you compete a new market with technology as a new startup in order to get new customer?
I go back to, I think, how I started this webinar is segmentation. You cannot want to have everybody at the same time, if you will, right from the get-go. Amazon had their own target and books only, for example, in the beginning. Apple, of course, is not the cheapest product. So also they had a certain tech savvy and ABC style income people. To be honest, we're doing the same thing. We're aiming both for people who have a certain degree of income and a certain degree of likeliness to purchase even existing products in a new way. So our current way of working is indeed pure online electric vehicle leasing. As said, we are going to move, hopefully, the platform into more, all part of CASE, future mobility. There was a question around AI earlier. There will be a lot of that will be involved in this. Autonomous, if it really takes off, and I do hope so, William, together with you, and I think so. I think it may take a little bit longer than people may have thought, and it may come in different shapes. But that, in combination with consumer AI, as opposed to functional AI, if you will make huge differences in the future. The first people to step on that will be the same people, I think, who are the Apple phone fans who's wait until 2 a.m. in front of the door of Apple stores for something that a week later you just walk in the shop and buy. It's people who love gadgety things, people who are willing to pay for it, people who are super proud if they are the first, they want to be leading. Those are the variables that these people have in common that you want to reach. And that's what we as a startup have to do. If we take large companies head on, first of all, we may not be able to supply cars because they may say, we have our dealerships and we can already do it. We have a very new way of working and a very specific segment that we think we can appeal to. From there, we'll expand. But yeah, and we take everything really in consideration. It includes AI, everything.
We've got someone from the audience who would like to ask a question. Hi, what's your name and your question, please?
Hello, I'm Catalina. I'm demand generation manager in UK, and my question is, are there specific challenges for the automotive industry in providing a personalized buying experience?
Thank you, Catalina. Who would like to answer? Louise, David, who would like to answer this question?
I can happily answer this. Yeah, this is coming back to what everyone else has been saying. It's all boiling down to this one thing. It's actually understanding your customer and then being able to understand them detailed enough and have the AI and the activation, as John's mentioning, to provide this hyper-personalized approach. And as everyone's sort of saying along the panel so far, is the automotive industry ready for that? And I think that eventually we're getting there. But if we compare that to where Apple, Amazon, Google is, we are quite far behind in those terms. So the right action, but we're not there yet.
Thank you, David. Question to William, Adam. How important personalization is it for you / company in terms of marketing strategy?
Yes, it goes back to something I touched on earlier about everything we do serving the user experience, right? And that the whole idea of last mile delivery, the way we do it at least, is kind of like this. The logistics companies have already solved getting a product to your local off license or your local dry cleaners. The big cost or the problem is then getting it from there to your house because A, you might not be home, B, there's so many variables and it's expensive. So what we've done is made it so that when you, the user, get home, you then press a button saying, deliver it to me now. So it means you'll never miss a delivery. So it's actually on-demand delivery. So the whole experience is customized for you. It's when you want it. And that is in service to creating the best user experience ever. While I'm talking, I might as well touch on a question you asked earlier about what large companies can learn from small tech companies, which answers this question at the same time, which is innovation, to always be innovating. Now, to go back a few years, I think 2005, it was a fact that self-driving does not work because AI does not work. Then NVIDIA brought us a new technology called the GPU, where we could perform millions of computing tasks at the same time. Then all these equations from the 60s, which were shelved, all of a sudden were put into place and voila, you now can have a self-driving car. But this was impossible tech before 2005. So as startups, we keep innovating. We keep finding a new way, better way, new way, better way. And at the moment, the industry is kind of, all car companies are doing something called ADAS systems. And we're a startup. An ADAS system, for those that might not know, is advanced driver assistance. It's what keeps you in lane when you're veering out of the lane, or it beeps at you when you're about to hit a pedestrian. Because we're a startup which is always innovating, the current cost of an ADAS system is several £1,000s. We've literally just patented and written a paper on a way we're able to take this price to sub £100. It's going to change the industry, but it's because we keep innovating. So I think those are the answer to the two things. The first one, which was what can big companies learn from tech companies? Don't stop innovating. There's always a better way. Keep evolving. And then your second question simply was my answer to what the second question was. But yeah.
Thank you. Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. I think personalization obviously goes without saying plays a massive role within the industry. I'll give you some examples of some of the things that we've done around that through our app. Is traditionally customer will go into the showroom, they'll be handed a brochure and all the rest of it and put together. So instead, we built the app, and our app digitalizes all of our brochures and all the content ready for the sales exec to walk through that journey with the customer. So we know generally, it's pretty well known that the customers are generally going into the dealership once, and that's probably to sign on the dotted line. It's probably going to change very shortly too, and they probably won't enter the dealership at all prior to purchase, maybe just drop in for a service. But with some of William's techs, hopefully maybe he might have a towing truck or something of a sort that would take the car there, or the car itself will go there. But essentially our sales execs at the moment, is from the moment the customer comes into the showroom to when they exit the showroom, everything is personalized to that customer. So down to the brochure, we have 100, 200 page brochures. They won't receive all of that. They'll only receive the pages that are relevant to them that they want. So if they've asked about mountaineering or a specific alloy wheel, it would just be them pages. Same with any video content we produce, same with any marketing materials you produce. And then what you whatever you want to call it, which is targeted to that customer specifically. And at the moment, we send out hundreds of them a day. So we don't just burst out any brochures. We monitor what people are sending out. We want the experience to be as personalized as it can be. If you go one level above that, to sort of how customers are interacting on the website, again, personalization is massive. And I think that's where, as John and William alluded to, that's where the AI really comes into that section of the industry in terms of just probably next best action. What is the next best action for that customer? We're going to need AI engines to provide us with that information. And we're quite quick to just force test drive on a lot of people and get them to test drive, and then look at the conversions, just so we can work backwards and have the confidence that the cars are going to sell. But it might not be a test drive. It might be something softer, just like a quote, or it might even be push them out to third party to get a review or some other format as well. So I think, it's definitely going through a massive personalization shift at the moment, which is only a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We are now almost at the end of this webinar, and to close, I will ask each of our speakers their top advice to focus on your customers and innovate to stay relevant. So you will have pretty much 1 minute each to share your top advice. Let's get started with Louise, please.
I think we need to, in the industry, remember what we do. We don't build and sell cars. We make people mobile. And if we keep thinking, back to what William says about being innovative, if we keep thinking about how we move customers from A to B, how we help them go about their daily lives, and change the model that we sell or lease them a car, and think about that whole customer journey more clearly, I think that whoever does that, whether it be an existing vehicle manufacturer or whether it be a startup company, will win.
Vincent?
I guess I would say believe and be inspired are the things I would like to say. It's easy to believe something will not happen, easy to say not possible, but as William, I guess, said earlier, things will become possible. They will happen. And the moment you say no and someone says yes and runs away with it is, well, you know who's going to win of the two, right? I was thinking one thing about what Adam was saying earlier. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the spoof advertisement from 1 to 3, the DNA people, and personalization is fantastic. That kind of personalization and AI combination, they of course blend it with your DNA. That is for me the Valhalla of personalization, which was your previous question, but I would link that in with, belief. It's going to happen one day. You're going to give your spit to your car manufacturer, and they will come with a car that you yourself would not have thought of, but it will be the best thing for you. Leather seats, if that's what you like, sporty versus luxurious, shock breakers, everything just by delivering some saliva to a car company.
Thank you.
Believe, I guess, is my advice.
John?
I think probably to stick at it, to be persistent. There's a lot of value in persistence and not giving up. And in my context, it's an enormous challenge, connecting up all this data so that you can actually not just get sense out of it, but to activate it. And I've mentioned earlier these challenges from a regulatory environment that are perhaps pulling us the other way. So also to be aware of what your mitigation strategies might be for that. And I think we're going to see a much greater reliance on how we can use permissioned first-party data, for example, and also going a little bit further out into the future, the use of synthetic data, which is data that we might create almost with avatars through agent-based modeling, it's called. So how do you create an environment almost in a sandbox that you can use to predictive? That's getting a little bit further in the future, but stick at it, because when it works, it can have some really dramatic effects. We've seen by 25-35% reduction in our cost per action by pulling first and third party data together in a programmatic environment, for example. So stick at it and you'll get there.
William?
If you walk into a hospital today, you feel like you've kind of taken a trip back to 1980. There's a lot of old established tech there. And I think it's a fear of mine that the auto industry might be stuck there, where there's a lot of established systems and established technologies which work. We shouldn't be scared to rip it all up and start from scratch. The year is 2020, and it's okay to break out of these established boundaries and not be stuck in 1980. So that's my advice. Don't be stuck in 1980.
Adam?
I think my main piece of advice is not to get complacent. I think complacency breeds comfort, and that in turn then stifles innovation and sort of just natural innovation. Is something probably within the automotive industry that has been rife, and attitudes are changing towards it, which is probably why the industry is where it is at the moment. I'm sure all sort of major OEMs were all very innovative, etc., in their heyday, and essentially getting comfortable within the market, getting comfortable and confident that your products are going to sell. It just sucks a lot of the natural energy out of things. And when you are complacent and when you do get comfortable, you stop innovating naturally, because you're not driving to deliver the best, be it the best product, the best experience. And that's where you can find yourself rife for disruption. So I think generally not being complacent. I mean, just take the situation we all find ourselves in today. Maybe we do anything to just have a dinner out with our loved ones at the moment. You know, it doesn't seem it's anytime soon on the horizon. And that just comes generally from maybe being complacent, taking things for granted, and just being comfortable. If you remove that and you try and deliver the best product, best service, best experience every time, whether you've sold one vehicle or 10 million, I don't think it would do you wrong.
I would like to thank all of you in this panel for doing a great webinar. To the listeners, there will be below that video the link of David's book, The Automotive Secrets, where you can be able to download it. And maybe I will give David the last couple of words to close this webinar. Yeah, so sticking with the general theme of one bit of advice, and my sort of tip sits over two things, and it's really understanding your customer, absolutely understanding your customer, but then actually having a framework within your business that it can sit on, which I believe the tech companies have. As everyone's saying here on the panel, is that we don't know what's coming next, right? There's so much innovation going on. People's attitudes are changing. I mean, we've got a massive crisis at the moment. And when you understand your customer absolutely, and you have an agile way of working, you can pivot wherever you want. There are some companies that are absolutely can't do anything right now because they don't have that. They don't understand the customers, and they don't have the agile framework. Whereas actually there are other companies out there that do know their customers and have agile frameworks that are actually serving customers in the time that they need it the absolute most. And my advice would be to William's point, tear things up, start again, and prepare for what's coming, because no one knows what it is. Thank you all. Goodbye.